I have a sword. This is supposed to be a replica of I believe, supposed to be of a Roman sword. So kind of like what the gladiators probably would have used. I think this actually kind of looks a little bit like some of the swords that we see in One Piece that they use in Dressrosa at the Colosseum. I could be wrong on that one, but I'm watching the Dressrosa arc in English, and this looks kind of like the swords a little bit. Um, so I saw the Eternals this weekend, and you know, fan critic score, whatever you want to put it at. They didn't necessarily like it, or I know sometimes the fans liked it and the critics didn't necessarily like it for various reasons, of course. But I did like it. I very much happened to like the movie. I went and saw it with my dad. And, you know, so this is actually the most movies I've been to in a while because of like my mom and I went and saw the My Hero movie the other week, and my dad and I went and saw Eternals. So, lots of fun movie viewing for me. You know, I like sword. Sword's gonna go in the back. Sword's gonna go back here. And sheath, whatever. There we go. So, I'm just basically going to talk about the Eternals. I'm going to talk about, what I thought of the movie, do like a summation of the story at various points, or like hit the main bullet points of the story, and go from there. Basically the opening of the movie is we see like, not prehistoric, but like, 5000 BC, so, 5000 BC from now would be, 7,021 years ago, give or take, is when that would have been. And it's in ancient Mesopotamia. And we see these 10 superpowered beings arrive on this ship that's called the Domo. I'm going to do my best to pronounce the names in this as closely to correct as I can. There's probably like one I'm going to stumble over a little bit, but I apologize for that. I did like all the characters for the most part, or like the character development that they put into a lot of them. There's ones that, you like more than others and such. But what we see is we kind of get this, bit of a backstory on these, deities, creatures, entities, Eternals, whatever you want to refer to them as. They're from the home planet of Olympus. I think I'm going to do a separate video where I kind of go through and point out as many of the mythological / historical references that they throw out in the movie. I probably won't catch all of them, but I'm going to do a separate video for that. So if I don't really point them out in this video, that's why I'm going to do them in a separate video. Or I'll expand on them more in a different video if I do like briefly point them out here. Okay, so these 10 beings arrive. We have the leader of them, who is Ajax. She is played by Salma Hayek, and she does an amazing job as her, in my opinion. I like Salma Hayek quite a bit. Her power appears to be the power of healing. And she also has this kind of communication orb thing that like comes out of her chest and allows her to communicate with their creator, Arsham, who is a celestial type being. We've heard of celestials before. They've been mentioned a few different times. The biggest reference that I can give you for who a celestial is Ego, the planet, who is kind of Peter Quill's father. Is Peter Quill's father is Ego, and we see like another celestial referenced in like the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, like using the Power Stone at some point in time. And like these celestials are these like extremely ancient beings. The head that makes up Nowhere is like the head of a celestial being that is died so long ago. So we get a few different references to some of the other, some of the previous celestials for like, universe building. And they're not like, oh, they've only been mentioned here. So they've been mentioned before. The Eternals have only been mentioned here, though, I do believe. Although in the comics, Thanos is the son of two Eternals. And in this, I think he is referenced to be the son of two Eternals as well, because we see his brother at the very, very end of the movie. But I'll get to that later. And so Ajax is the leader, and then we have Cersei, who is played by Gemma Chan, who she's previously been in the Marvel MCU as Minerva in the Captain Marvel movie as one of the Kree. And I'm glad that she gets a much better role in this one. Her power is molecule manipulation or atom manipulation. She can change the molecules or the atoms of it appears to be non-living entities into something else. So she can change, rocks into water. She can change, different things into gold. She can, do, lots of this other stuff. So she can help, with changing things around them into more useful things. Or like, oh, well, we have all this rock, but we don't have food. So, well, I can at least turn this rocks into, dirt and soil, so then we can, plant food. Or, oh, we need water, so I'll make water. Or, oh, this giant rock is about to crush me, I'm going to turn it into a bunch of birds, which she does at some point in time. I'm sure she also does it with, like, giant boulder going to crush me, turns into butterflies. So kind of a little bit like the Reality Stone, in all honesty. I guess would kind of be a good example for that one, because she can shift the power around, change it from one into another. Very, very, basically just like alchemy to the next level. Then we have Icarus. And as I said, I am going to do a different video where I point out all the different like mythological references that these are pulling from. Ajax is, I think, like a Roman or a Greek soldier that I'm not extremely familiar with. Cersei's is the basic reference to the witch from the Odyssey that seduces Ulysses. Yeah, Ulysses. Yes, Ulysses. And then Icarus is, of course, a reference to the boy that flew too close to the sun. There's a payoff for that. He is played by Richard Madden, and I'm going to go over the casting at the end of the movie, so I'll probably miss some of these. He is played by Richard Madden, and he is, of course, most famous for being from, Game of Thrones. I will point out the other references to that. And his powers are flight and laser vision. Go ahead and make the Superman comments now. Marvel already did. So I don't know if that's supposed to be like a double thing that's like, oh, he's this inspiration for Icarus that flew too close to the sun, but he's also this double reference to like Superman because, Superman can fly and has laser vision, but Superman also has like super strength. I don't know if Icarus had super strength or not. And then we have Kingo, who is played by Kumail Nanjiani, who is mostly known for being a comedian, but he's done more acting roles as well. His power is he seems to be able to form different types of energy beams out of his hands. He can, form the beams, and then he can also he kind of fires them from his fingers, so finger guns type of thing. And the man later on gets very into pop culture, so I think he probably has at least some point in his life, once it was released or once he found out about it, probably has done a Kamehameha from, Dragon Ball, because if you have his power and you don't do that, then why? And then we have Sprite, who I apologize, I do not know who played Sprite. She's not an actress that I am super familiar with, but I will be going through them at the end of the in the cast list as well. Her power is she can create illusions. She is also physically looks the youngest out of all of the Eternals. All the rest of them appear to be at the very least adults to very, very late teens into early 20s. With, I believe, Ajax and Gilgamesh looking like the two oldest. But Sprite looks the youngest, and her power is she can create these illusions, and she uses them to spin stories and everything like that, which is quite cool. And then we have Festus, who is, I believe, played by Tyree Henry. Pretty sure I'm missing a name in there, but it's Tyree Henry, and I apologize if I forgot part of his name. But his power is he can create technology. He can physically build the blueprints for the technology using his hands to make kind of illusions appear. But he can also, I think, then you know, form them into something as well, to like physically create something, I believe. And I kind of compare his hand movements to the way he does that, and even Sprite's to a degree for the way that she moves her hands, to very similarly to the way that the sorcerers do in the Doctor Strange movie, to the way that Strange and Wong and the way that, you know, the Ancient One and the rest of the sorcerers, you know, manipulate their hands and everything to, you know, make their spells work, looks very similar to the way that Festus uses his hands for making his things work. Then we have Makari, who, again, I apologize, I do not know her actress's name right off the top of my head, because I'm not familiar with her, unfortunately. And by the way, going into this movie, I didn't have really any idea of who the Eternals were from the comics, because they weren't something that I was extremely familiar with. I might look a little bit more into them now, but I'm not super familiar with them to begin with. So just what I know is kind of what's in this, and then like the slight bit that I've gotten while I was like, you know, looking stuff up for, you know, this video. So we have Makari. And her power appears to be super speed, but I think she also has some type of like strength enhancement as well. She is also, I believe she's at least mute and possibly deaf, or mostly deaf, one of the two. And the actress that they have playing her is also deaf and mute. So you see her doing lots of sign language and stuff like that, and you see the other actors signing to her as well, which I apologize. I think the only things that I know how to do in sign language is this means thank you, I believe, and, you know, there's the whole basic, you know, this is I love you, basically. That's about like the only things that I can remember how to do in sign language. I think at some point I used to be able to spell my name, but I don't remember. But you know, so we have her, and yeah, her power is like super speed, so she can, like, you know, kind of like the Flash, but she, like, you know, zips all over the place really, really quickly. And I think she does have some form of like a strength enhancer as well that goes with it. And then we have Druig, and he also kind of looks, him and Makari look just a little bit older than like Sprite, but they can still pass as like being adults to a degree. And Druig's power is, again, I don't know who he's played by, so I apologize. Druig's power is he can control people's minds. And he goes through, and his basic, what he does is, like, you know, oh, if people start, you know, fighting amongst themselves, he, you know, makes them, you know, controls their minds, makes them stop, and then they move on. Or makes people, like, if, you know, like, when they first arrive on the planet, they first arrive in Earth in, like, ancient Mesopotamia. The dog's outside the door. One moment. The dog didn't want to come into bed. Oh well. But, you know, Druig has helped to, like, you know, lower conflict levels and stuff like that. And he goes through, like, when they first arrive, and I'll explain what happens when they first arrive, but they interact with the inhabitants of Mesopotamia, and they're, like, very scared, so he, like, kind of calms them down and makes them drop their weapons. And then we have Gilgamesh, who is, of course, a reference to the Epic of Gilgamesh, because it's supposed to be based on him. He is played by Don Lee, and his power is kind of super strength, is what he does, from what I can tell. And when he fights, most of the characters, when they battle, they get like these different symbols that appear on their skin or around their skin that, in all honesty, to me kind of looks very similar to like the Time Lord language that you see in Doctor Who. I don't know, one may have drawn from the other, but it's also like concentric circles and overlapping circles and round symbols and stuff like that kind of happens whenever they put on their suits that they use, or whenever they just activate their powers. And with Gilgamesh, it's like different types of like rings appear around his hand, and then he can use them to like enhance his strength. We also see him just physically be strong anyway, with, you know, at one point he like crushes a pan, you know, like a cast iron skillet, he crushes that. And, you know, so that's his power, is super strength. And then we have Athena, who is, of course, a reference to Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war. Athena's power appears to be she can form any type of like hand-to-hand combat weapon out of like the same light type of material that the others, you know, kind of use as well in some way or the other. Because when Kingo uses his powers, it like the lines kind of appear over his fingers, and then he can fire off that way. And like when Makkari runs, like she gets like these the golden symbol lines kind of appear all around her, and when Cersei changes something into another, her hands gain like this a symbol overlay over the top of it. And with Athena, it's, you know, it forms into whatever types of weapons she needs it to be, which we see quite a few times in the trailer where we see her fighting. Now, the reason they have been sent to Earth is because Arshem, who is this celestial, as I said, he created them to go to Earth and to destroy these deviants, which are these, explain to them as these creatures that are from deep space that go and hunt intelligent life. And they have come to Earth, and they keep attacking humans. So the, you know, the celestial, you know, the Eternals show up, and they take out the different, you know, they take out the various deviants, and then they help kind of build humanity up. They build. We cut back to it later. We kind of cut back and forth between the past and the present. But I'm just going to kind of go through what happens in the past first, and then I'll move on to the present for the most part. But, you know, and then we kind of jump ahead a little bit to, like, you know, like 1,000 years later or so, and we see Babylon. Now, we don't get an exact, you know, we don't see that it is Babylon right away, but I knew that it was Babylon because we see these giant blue and gold gates, which are the gates of Babylon, which are, you know, those and like the hanging towers of Babylon are like some of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And we kind of see that as well in the movie. We see like the hanging gardens and such. And it's supposed to be that like underneath the city of Babylon is where they have now stashed their ship, the Dome, and like everything was built on top of that. So they still go in and out of their ship that's underneath this giant, you know, city that they bring everybody into, that they bring more and more people into, and like have built up humanity more. And they've built up humanity more and more to help, you know, just help them along and nudge them along, and, you know, they have to keep fighting the deviants and everything like that, which is the main thing that the, you know, they're kind of built into like 2 different groups. The Eternals that deal with the deviants for the most parts are Ikaris and Kingo and Makkari and Gilgamesh and Athena, and then Ajax, Cersei, Sprite, Festus, and Druig are the main ones that deal with like interacting with the people. Not that the other ones don't interact as well enough that, you know, Festus can fight against the deviants because like he's developed these, you know, kind of like the sextant rings that kind of act like, you know, like he can use them to like fire off lasers or so, or like pin down the, you know, the deviant, and then the others can attack it. And you know, Cersei can, you know, change, you know, something into a weapon. Like she can, you know, pick up a stick and change it into just like a piece of straight steel or something like that, and stab the deviant with it. So a lot of them can still fight both ways, and then, you know, they kind of, you know, work together. But the other ones that are more like Sprite and Druig and Festus and Cersei and Ajax more deal with helping humanity slowly move further. And at one point we see Festus trying to design like a steam engine to like help the people, because a steam engine in ancient Mesopotamia and Babylon, I get where you're coming from, Festus, but I don't necessarily think that's the best idea. And he's just like, fine, you won't let me do this? Fine, I'll give him a plow then. So he designs like a plow for him. And, you know, Ajax has told them that, you know, it's like, you can interact with the humans, that's not a problem. And like we see Sprite telling them lots of different stories, and like making up like kind of the epic, you know, the beginnings of like the Epic of Gilgamesh, and like she's supposedly the one that like starts off a lot of these different stories, that these guys are all kind of, you know, inverse way of, you know, this is a reference back to this, but they're the thing that made this. So, and I'm going to do, that's what I'm going to point out a little bit more in the other Eternals video I'm going to do. But the other thing that we see is, you know, Druig wants to kind of just make it that everybody can get along, make it that all the humans can just get along and not fight each other. You know, it's the Eternals' job to go and fight the deviants, not, you know, prevent wars from happening among men. We cut, you know, several, you know, we kind of see a little bit more of Ikaris and Cersei starting to develop a romantic relationship, you know, which isn't forbidden or anything like that. And I don't think it's forbidden at all for like the Eternals to fall in love with humans. That's not forbidden. It's just that, you know, in certain time frames, like nowadays, if like an Eternal fell in love with a human, like they could pass off like they're not aging as like, oh, I just have really good genes, or like, oh, I had work done, or something like that. But like for certain time frames, it's like as even stated, it's like I got so tired of having to move around every 5 years because I would notice that Sprite doesn't age, and Sprite, is still kind of this child. She looks somewhere like mid-teenager range is where I would put Sprite for the way that she looks. I don't know the exact age of the actress, but if she's within that age range, then I would say that that's just roughly the age that Sprite's supposed to be, or physically supposed to be, and she doesn't age any further. She doesn't get older. But Icarus and Circe fall in love, and they do end up getting married, and they have, like, we cut to, like, India, whatever point in time in history, I don't remember, pointing out a few other incidents, throughout history that the Eternals have dealt with or have been there. And we see, Circe and, Icarus get married, and we see the rest of the group there, happy for them and everything. And then the next kind of jump forward that we get is in 1521. During the Spanish invasion of the Aztec capital of, and I apologize, I am probably going to mispronounce this, and I apologize already, the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, I apologize. Initially, when I first saw it, because I had dyslexia, I thought it said Chichen Itza or something along those lines, and I'm like, no, that's not right. I know that's not right. Or Teotihuacan, which is, I know that's not the correct pronunciation of this either, because those aren't the right letters, but I apologize. But, we see them there, and it's this giant Spanish invasion and everything, and, they're kind of prevented from helping them, helping the Aztecs, and saving them from the Spaniard, preventing them from being killed by the Spanish is kind of, they're prevented from doing that because Ajax is, we're not supposed to interfere. And we get this two moments that happen, two very important things happen. One, Athena starts to develop what is called as Maud Weary, which, I'm assuming is like a play off of the words like mind weary, because it's stated to be this illness that Eternals get because they've had so many memories that their mind cannot contain them all, that it starts to fracture their mind. And Athena ends up attacking the rest of the group. She ends up getting subdued by Gilgamesh. And then, Ajax explains to her, okay, so this is what the problem is. You have Maud Weary, and, I can take you back to the ship, and I can, erase your memories, and then you can, kind of start anew again. And they're like, but then she won't be Athena anymore. She won't be her anymore. And, Athena doesn't want to do that. I think I vaguely forgot to mention this. I'm sorry. It's one of the bigger names in the movie. Athena is Angelina Jolie, of course, which I don't know why I didn't mention that earlier. But Athena is played by Angelina Jolie. And we get to see Gilgamesh and Athena basically end up. Gilgamesh is like, well, I will watch over her, because he can subdue her if she starts to go crazy and starts attacking him. He can fight her off and like kind of bring her out of it. So, she kind of goes, if she kind of goes Hulk for all intents and purposes, he can kind of Natasha version of calm her down. The way that Natasha kind of calms Hulk down in Age of Ultron, the way that we see her do that. But, also what happens is Druig kind of just gets to the point where he is fed up with the fact that they are unable to literally, he's like, I could control the minds of every human on this planet and then just make them all live in harmony and peace. And, then we don't have to watch them kill each other again and again and again. Like, we don't have to get to know these people and then watch them, kill each other. And he gets, so angry about this that he just basically walks out of this temple that they're in and, like, mind controls all of these, the Spanish and the Aztec that are all there. He basically mind controls all of them. They all drop their weapons, and then he leads them off into the woods, into the forest, and just kind of goes off. Because he doesn't want to, watch all of them, kill each other. again and again and again, because he's fed up with that, because he's like, I have the power to prevent all these wars from happening, but you don't let me prevent these wars from happening, and then we just watch more people die. And so he goes off, and Ajax basically tells everybody else that she releases them to go on their own way. And, we cut to, 500 years later, they've all gone their own ways and everything like that. And they've all kind of, they've all found like their own places, for where they're happy to a degree, or like gone off and, gone from, this one knows where this one is, and that one knows where this one went, and that one went here, and that one went there, and everything like that. Some of them are paired together, and they're all just kind of waiting for this moment for when they're given the signal that they can return to Olympia, which is, of course, the planet that they're from. We cut to present day, and we have Cersei and Sprite live together in London, and Cersei is currently teaching at the Natural History Museum, and she is dating a man named Dane Whitman, and he's played by Kit Harington, of course. Yes, I know. I'll get to that. We have 2 Stark children in this movie. Yes, we do. We also have at least 1 crazy rich Asian. Yes, Gemma Chan was in Crazy Rich Asians. And, Cersei and Dan are, for all intents and purposes, they are in love. And I think at some point Sprite has kind of told Dan a little bit of something, but Dan also just has like this thing, because like he kind of asked Cersei at some point, because it's like his birthday and blah 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 blah, and there had been this like huge earthquake that had happened like earlier in the day that was just like all over the world. There was this huge earthquake. And what happens is Dan even tells Cersei, he's like, are you like a wizard? Huh? Like a wizard, like Doctor Strange. Because if you are, that would be great. And, I notice things, it's like, our water changes into coffee, whenever we wait too long, at a diner, and it just changes into coffee. And like, she just has a reason for everything. And she, it's just like trying to get him to not ask questions, or trying to come up with like a reason behind things. And, like Sprite doesn't age, I think is like one of the things that he says, or something like that, or like that's one of the other things that he points out. And then like they're leaving the party, and like it's him and Sprite and Dane and Cersei. And Cersei and Dane seem to get along, or they get along fine, but Sprite and Dane also seem to get along okay too. And then they are attacked by this deviant, and the deviant somehow has the power to heal itself, which they weren't able to do before. Dan is, of course, like, oh my god, what is this, type of thing. And, Icarus happens to show up at this point in time, and he helps fight off the deviant, but then it, swims away. And, then we get this, Icarus and Dane have like this, stare off a little bit, which is just kind of funny, because, of course, I have watched Game of Thrones, and of course it's, Richard Madden is, of course, Robb Stark, and, Kit Harington is, of course, Jon Snow and everything like that. And, it's just this moment where they're just, like, staring at each other. Like, this is Dan. This is Icarus. He's the pilot. Sure, we can go with that. He's a pilot because he flies, type of thing. At some point, Icarus had kind of abandoned Cersei and Sprite at some point, about like a century ago or something like that. And, so that's why Cersei is, now dating Dan. Because it's like, well, you were gone for a really long freaking time, and I got lonely. I found him, type of thing. And they then end up having to go to South Dakota, which is where Ajax lives. And they get there and they find out that Ajax is dead. And that kind of, she's dead and her power is gone. And her communication orb that she uses to communicate with Arishem kind of comes out of her dead body, and then goes into Cersei. And then Cersei kind of gets like this weird vision of Arishem where he says, it is almost time, and then it just kind of cuts out. Part of the rest of the movie is basically just like them trying to find the rest of their people. And first they go to India, where they find Kingo. And he has basically, he's basically like a Bollywood pop star type thing, is what he's turned into, which I find funny. Um, because we see him doing this whole big, like, musical number type thing, filming for a movie that he's in and everything like that. And, he's like this, this, big actor type thing. And it's just funny. And I think that's also just like, because I think, Kamal Nanjiani is actually kind of like a fan of Bollywood stuff, so I think they went with that just because it allows him to do that, and I just think that's kind of funny. Um, um, but then they also meet his kind of chauffeur, not chaperone, but chauffeur, assistant type thing, and I cannot remember his name, and I apologize. But he's just like a normal human that knows that Kingo is Kigo, whatever. That's the one that I cannot pronounce correctly, and I apologize. That he can, that he knows about him being eternal, and he knows that they're eternals and everything like that. And he's like, I met him, like 50 years ago, and like he thought I was a vampire, and he tried to stab me, and he's like, I've apologized for that. Not enough, but getting close, type of thing. And then they basically take Kingo's jet to go to find Gilgamesh and Athena, and we kind of get like a little bit more of like what Kingo has been up to for the past 500 years, and he explains that he kind of made this persona of this like family of actors that is his current actor is like the great grandson or something like that of like this other very famous like Bollywood actor, and like this was my great grandfather and my great grandfather and my grandfather and my father and now me type of thing. And it's like James Bond, Errol Flynn, all this other type of stuff, that he's like, kind of studied these films, and it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Like been this, big kind of like movie star type thing. And just kind of like has this like family legacy going on down that he just kind of created, and just like I'm assuming every so many years or something like that he like fakes his own death, and then comes up with this or like comes a recluse or something like that, and then like takes up the new identity of like the grandson or the son or whatever, and carries that on down. Takes on that family reputation type of thing. And then they go to Australia, which is where Gilgamesh and Athena are. They had been attacked by another deviant that Gilgamesh killed. And Kingo is having his valet, whatever, I cannot remember the guy's name, I apologize, has him like trying to film like a documentary of like everybody, like interview them and everything like that, and that's not going very well for him, unfortunately. And they go and they talk to Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh apparently is a very good cook, and his food looks really good if you ask me. But it's like he's also like had to like isolate him and Athena for the most part for the past 500 years, and whether or not they had like arrived in Australia at some point like long before the the settlers came, or if it was like, oh, they've traveled around a bit and it just like Australia seemed like this very good place for them to go at some point in time, and then they've just been there for so long. And they have like he had built a house there, and I'm assuming part of the house probably got destroyed by the deviants attacking. Plus I'm sure also the house has also been hurt at times when like him and Athena fight because her mod Weary acts up. And he's like, oh guys, I'm so happy to see you and everything like that. Yeah, I know there's a deviant on the beach, I killed it, it's okay, I have pie. And he like pulls out like this fresh baked pie out of like his like outdoor oven thing that he made, and he pulls it out and he like shows it to him, and this pie looks good. I'm not much of a pie person, but this pie looks good. And he's like, I have pie. And they're like, Ajax is dead. And like he just like he's holding the pie in like this steel, like this cast iron skillet type thing with like a good handle on it. And he just like drops that to the side of him, and you see like the top of the pie just like peel off and fall on the ground. Which I'm just like, funny thing happening, sad moment happening. And he like kind of like works his way over to the table, like the outdoor table, and he just like sits down, like, 'cause he's like, it's like, dawning on him, like, this is like, oh, this is real, like, oh yeah, Ajax really is dead, type of thing. And like he just like picks, like, has the pen in his hand, and then he just like crushes it like it's paper. Like, it would be like crushing it like me crushing like aluminum foil or something like that. And I know that it's like a prop pan probably that they have, but it's just a, like, type thing, and he just like crushes it. And then they go and see Thena, and she is like sitting around this tree that has, and like this is like just desolate everywhere. Like, I think they're like somewhere in like the outback area, or like an area that has like an outback area where like it maybe meets the beach, or like more of a desolate beach area or something like that. I'm not sure exactly. Um, but they go and they see her, and she has like this kind of like weird altar looking thing that she's built. It's like this design of something like with bones and rocks, like animal bones. Because probably her and Gilgamesh have to like hunt for their own food, or like he'll bring back like a whole version of like something or other. Like, oh, I got this whole cow, it'll last us for a while, and like preserves the meats themselves or whatever. And then like she like takes the bones and made this like thing around this dead tree or something. And she's like drawing and painting and stuff like that. And like some of it you can tell it's like, oh, well, that's Arsham's face in one of them, and a few other things that look like different planets or something like that. And he says, well, she keeps having visions of thinking that she's on this other planet and that it's going to be destroyed. And they're like, well, we were never on that planet. We've always been on Earth. Yeah, he's like, I know, but it's, that's just what she thinks in this, this part of her memory or something like that. And, like, she kind of attacks him, but he calms her down. And then, like, they all go into the house. And this is actually one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, is all of them in like, a Gilgamesh and Thena's house. And, like, the chauffeur is, or, like, the valet is there, too. And, like, it's all the rest of them. Like, they're all just, like, eating the really good food that, like, Gilgamesh has made. And it's just like, oh god, this food is so good. And like, oh, this, this like meat or ale or whatever it is that he has is like so good. And like, Kingo is just like, I remember when Thor used to follow me around when he was a kid. Now he doesn't even return my calls. And, it's like, they're all just like having fun and like having a family moment in the middle of all of this. And it's also, it's like, they haven't seen each other for the most part, in, at the most 500 years. At the least, some other large amount of time. That to a human would seem like, oh my god, how could you not go that long without seeing your family? But for them, it's like, well, they're immortals, they're eternal, they're not going to die, or it's extremely, extremely hard for them to die. And, it's like they're eating. I don't know if we ever get an exact answer as to if Eternals actually have to eat, or even if like they didn't eat, if like they would still just like keep going on fine, or if like they just like enjoy food because it's just like, well, it tastes good, why wouldn't we eat it, type of thing. And they're eating and they're all talking and everything, and just having fun and everything. And then Cersei goes out, and like her and Gilgamesh talk a little bit, because she like looks over these drawings that like Thena has made. And Gilgamesh says, well, maybe instead of trying to call to Arsham, you should just try to listen instead. And she goes off and she kind of, meditates. And then she gets this huge communication thing where she speaks to Arsham. And Arsham explains that, yes, all of you were sent to Earth, and the emergence is what is going to happen. And she's like, well, what's the emergence? He's like, it is the birth of the Eternals. It's the birth of a Celestial. And what happened was, so many millions, billions of years ago or whatever, because Arsham is, I think, supposed to be the, like, original Celestial. And, sent out, like, celestial seeds all the way throughout the galaxy, all the way throughout the universe. And Earth happened to get a celestial seed, and, it slowly grows. And what happens is, he had originally developed the deviants to go and attack, like, the predators in the area to allow for, like, I guess, intelligent life to develop. But the deviants evolved themselves and then started to attack the intelligent life. So then they were on Earth, and then he had created the Eternals, to then be this new version of like an apex predator to go and destroy the deviants, but the Eternals could not evolve. Couldn't, they themselves couldn't really evolve. They themselves couldn't, change type of thing. And like they're all kind of taught that they're supposed to always obey Arshem. And, the Eternals were sent to Earth, and like this has happened so many hundreds or thousands of other times. And like the Eternals go to the planet, and then they help, build up the population on the planet, build it further and further and further, move it further and further ahead in technology and intelligence and everything like that. And the celestial seed that is inside of the planet slowly grows. And the celestial that is inside of Tiamat, or inside of Earth, is called Tiamat. Sorry. And that Earth's population has finally reached the necessary, threshold and the necessary intelligence level, and with Tiamat feeding off of that, for him to be able to awaken and emerge, which will destroy the planet. Which is not a good thing. I don't want my planet destroyed. If I get to say, I don't want my planet destroyed. And like he explains to, Arshem explains to Sersi that, Ajax knew this, and that, she knew this was going to happen, and she knew that this had happened, she'd been a part of these other missions and everything like that. And he's like, and so had all of you. And she's like, but I don't remember that. I was, we were from Olympia and everything. And he's like, no, Olympia isn't real. It's just this place that I created in all of your memories, that all of you are basically clones of things that I've made in a lab for all intents and purposes, and like a giant version of like a space lab. And I've made hundreds of you, or whatever, varying variations of all of you over the whole time frame of forever, and sent you out to all these other planets and everything like that. And you've done this over and over again, built up this planet, and then the celestial that's inside of it is born, and then they send out more energy into the world, into the universe, and send out more stuff to help create more and more. And he explains that after every single mission, your memories are all completely wiped. And one of the things you see in the trailer is like this giant wall that looks like it's made of like lots and lots of like crystals. That's supposed to house like all of their memories. Is like every different chamber is like their memories from like every single thing that they've done, all the different previous missions that they've done. And he's like, well, Ajax chose you to succeed her, so it's time for Tiamat to awaken. And it will awaken in like so many days or whatever. And then Earth will be destroyed, but then it will send out more power and more things into the world, into the universe, and then like all of you will return to me, and then basically start this whole process over again. And Sersi wakes up out of this like meditation communication with him, and she's just like freaking out. She runs back to like where the rest of the group are, and she explains to them that this is what Arshem has been doing. He Tiamat's gonna awaken, it's gonna destroy the Earth and everything like that. And like I like the valet, he's like, I would like the Earth not to get destroyed, I live here type thing. And they're like, it's like Sersi has Dan that she's kind of in love with, basically, and the others have like friends that they've made to a degree, and like Cersei's the one that has like been around humanity the most. Not that the others haven't been around humanity a lot, but they've also like Gilgamesh and Athena have had to like isolate themselves. Ajax was like living on a random farm, like horse farm or something like that, up in South Dakota. Sprite was around humans a fair amount, but Sersi kind of had to keep her a little bit hidden, so like Sprite doesn't even like go to school. And then like Kingo has been like around humanity, obviously, because like he's built up this whole reputation and everything for being this actor, and like this, the latest in this great line of amazing actors and everything like that. And they're like, okay, well, we need to find a way to stop this. Well, what if we make the Celestial fall asleep? So they decided they're going to go find Druig. And they make their way to South America, which is where Druig is, in the Amazon rainforest, in this like little conclave kind of, little hidden away area where him and like probably the descendants of like those Spanish soldiers and the Aztec warriors and Aztec people that he had, pulled out of, the battle and everything like that. That's probably like they're the descendants of them, plus like maybe some other people that have like come along over the centuries and everything like that. Because there were a fair number of people that even after 500 years, because I think he said like, for like the last several dozen or something generations, I've, lived among these people and everything like that. And they make their way there, and they end up getting attacked by more deviants. And one of them is Kor, who is kind of like the main deviant, or Crow, who's kind of like this main deviant, Kro. And he's that deviant is one that has the ability to like heal themselves the way that Ajax used to, and he ends up attacking, and like they end up fighting fighting the Eternals that are there and everything like that. And he ends up actually killing Gilgamesh, and basically like absorbs Gilgamesh's power out of him, and becomes even stronger and becomes more sentient. And he actually becomes kind of a little bit more, not human, but a little bit more, humanoid a little bit more. And he's able to like communicate, and like he tells the rest of them, he tells the Eternals that are there, he's like, for generations your kind have hunted my kind again and again and again, and like erased us and like destroyed us and everything, and now I'll make all of you pay for what they've done and for what you've done. And he goes off, and one of the other deviants had tried to attack Cersei, and she, in a moment of desperation, I mean, like, we've seen her change so many different things over the course of the movie, but I don't know if I think she says she cannot change a sentient being, because one of the running gags that happens with Dane is he's like, well, I always wanted to be a giraffe type of thing. And he's like, I was really hoping you could turn me into a giraffe. She's like, I can't turn you into a giraffe. But like at one point she's like attacked by one of the deviants, and like in this moment of desperation, she like activates her powers on it, and it turns into this giant tree. And like she'd never been able to do that before, because like she's like probably touched deviants before and like probably tried to use her power on them in the past, but it didn't work. And like she can change, the inanimate objects, or like I don't know what level of sentience is required for it to not work on her, but like the deviants might be like the sentient level high enough that she can't just like touch them and change them into like something else. But like she touches it and she turns it into this like giant tree in the middle of like this camp, little civilization thing that like Druig has built up. And like Druig was kind of like, I don't really know if I'm going to help you or not. But he goes with them, and Gilgamesh dies, and like they do this whole funeral for Gilgamesh, which is like just really is kind of sad to watch in the movie, of course. And like it's very hard. It's the hardest on Athena, of course. I mean, like it's hard on all of them, because it's like they've all been around each other for so long, and they've all cared about each other and everything. But Athena is one that it's the hardest on, because like Gilgamesh was always this one that like kept bringing her back from this edge, from bringing her back from the Maud Weary. And then they're like, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Cersei and Icarus go off, and they find Festus, who is currently living in, I think he's in like the suburbs of Chicago or something like that, is like where they have him. And he has a husband and a son, and I'm assuming the son is adopted. And like, he's just like this kind of like suburb dad type of thing. He's like fixing his son's bike with his own two hands and everything like that. And his son's like at like 10. I think he's stated to be 10 at some point in the movie. And they're just like, okay, well, they go to him and like, okay, here, Festus, we need your help. And he's like, no, I gave up using my powers and gave up trying to do that stuff a long time ago. We find out in a flashback that he is the one that designed part of the bombs that were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima at the end of World War II in Japan. And we see him that he like, at that time he had, we see the, the explosion, and like, that instantly that's what that is. Or at least I knew what that was instantly. And I mean, I have a connection to World War II. My grandfather on my mom's side fought in World War II. He was a gunner on one of the ships in the Pacific, but I don't. He wasn't anywhere near Nagasaki or Hiroshima or anything like that when that happened. But I know that like for Festus, it's like he like went there and he like saw this horrible damage, and he's just like breaking down, and like Ajax is there with him, and he's just like I I gave them this power. I gave them the power to do this, to destroy so many, to kill so many all in one go. And he just like takes that on himself. And so many, 50, 60, whatever years later, he met his husband, and he fell in love, and then they adopted their son or so. And he loves his husband and he loves his son, and like they're his reason to keep going. They gave him hope back in humanity and everything. And Festus is kind of this example of he contributed to this horrible thing that happened, and I'm sure he's going to carry that with him for the rest of however long that he's alive. And he is just he's going to carry that with him. But, and he went down this dark path and everything, and this dark spiral that he went in. But his husband, the man that he ended up meeting and, married and fell in love with and married and everything, and then they had like their son, adopted their son or so. And, he has that. He has his husband. He has his son. He has this life. He probably has other friends and everything like that. That he, like in the suburb area, that probably give him hope. And, for all we know, his son or his husband may have been snapped away by Thanos. We don't know. We can maybe hope that neither of them were. Because obviously this is all happening, post blip, post snap too. But I hope neither of them were snapped away, and I think the Eternals are all like immune from the snap anyway, and Thanos' snap anyway. But he, if that had happened, I'm pretty sure that Festus probably would have snapped if his son or his husband were taken away from him. By the snap, he probably would have snapped himself and like done something horrible, like maybe gone down like the Ronin Hawkeye path. Like, no. But Cersei and Ikaris are trying to talk him into coming with them and helping and everything like that. And he's just like, no, I'm not doing that. And like he's like, I haven't used my powers. And then Ikaris just like straight up like laser beams the guy's windows in his living room. And like they don't break or anything like that. And he's like, so you haven't used your powers. And what about this table? It's like just this wooden table that they're sitting at and talking in like the kitchen area or whatever. Like, what about this table? Is it made of vibranium? Smash! And it just like falls apart. And Ikaris just has this look on his face like, I didn't think that would happen. And then like Festus is just like, no, it's a fall collection from IKEA. And I liked it. And like it's actually his husband that convinces him to go. And to go with them and to help them try to stop Tiamat. And then they make their way to Mesopotamia, to where the ancient city of Babylon would have been. Like there's like some geologists and archaeologists that are there, and like Druig mind controls them to leave, and then like they rise the ship out of the ground where it's been for the past, several thousand years. And they go inside, and this is where we finally get to see Makkari again. And she's kind of, I think, turned into like a little thief, because we see like all these different like paintings and sculptures and different artifacts just like all over the place in the like inside of the ship. And she's just like gathered all this stuff up over the years. But like, her and Druig are happy to see each other, and like they're all kind of happy to see her anyway. And they start working on, Festus starts trying to think of a way of like, uniting all their powers, and he comes up with this idea of the Unimind, which is connecting all of their powers and then putting all of that power into Druig, so then Druig can like use this power to then like put Tiamat to sleep for so much longer. The plan then from there is to basically put Tiamat to sleep for however long, and then basically get humanity off the planet, so that way when Tiamat wakes up, you know, and emerges, he will simply, you know, he won't destroy all life on the planet. And like Sprite goes like, and what do you wanted to do? Build a boat and put 2 of every animal on it too? No, Ark. It was Ark. And one of the things that they, you know, they're working on that and everything. Like Festus is working on figuring that out. And what ends up happening is Icarus reveals that he knew about the emergence, that he was told by Ajax about it so long ago, and that he chose to remain loyal to Arsham. He also reveals that he's kind of the reason that Ajax is dead, because he found out that, you know, this is when the emergence is happening, so he went to South Dakota and he talked to Ajax, and like Ajax does like this great speech that I think like two quotes from it are the quote that I have on the end of this video, or the 2 quotes that I have on the end of this video, because I liked both of them and I wanted to keep both of them, and you know, I wanted to, so there. But what ends up happening is he takes her then to like Alaska, and he shows her that, oh, there were these 6 deviants left that somehow like got frozen in the ice, and they thawed out the other week, and like now they attack these like local oil miners or whatever. And he basically pushes Ajax off of this cliff, and she gets attacked by the deviants, and they like absorb, the main one like absorbs her power, and that one is the one that ends up becoming Crow. And then, you know, Icarus grabs her body and flies her back to, you know, South Dakota, and leaves her body there, and like, you know, torches part of the place. So it looks like it got attacked by a deviant, and then that's when he heads off to London to go and try to save, you know, to go and help, you know, protect Cersei and Sprite. I do also like the moment in when like Icarus and Cersei are meeting Festus' husband and son for the first time. I think his son is name is Jack, and I do not remember what his husband's name is. I apologize, because I don't think they actually say it in the movie. Or if they did, they only said it once. But like, he's like, I know him, Daddy. He was on TV. He's Superman. He has laser vision and a cape. And like Icarus goes, I don't wear a cape, which is, yeah, just funny. But you know, Icarus then reveals that he's, you know, this traitor among them to a degree. You know, it's like he never lost faith in Arsham and everything, and he like, you know, attacks the rest of the group, and you know, basically he leaves because he's gonna go and watch the emergence happen, and Sprite goes with him. And Kingo points out that the reason that Sprite went with him is because Sprite's been in love with Icarus for, you know, so long. He also makes a reference to Peter Pan in regard to like Sprite is Tinkerbell, Icarus is Peter, and Cersei is Wendy, which I'll break down a little bit more of that in like the Eternals references mythology video that I want to do, which may come out the same week that I do this, or it may come out the next week, give or take, how long that takes me to get that done. But, you know, so they go off, but then Kingo is like, you know, I don't, you know, I won't fight with you against him, but I won't hurt you all either. So like he leaves, and like his, you know, valet leaves with him, and like the valet actually like, you know, kind of, you know, the valet kind of like thanks them for like everything that they've done, for like helping with like building up the planet and everything like that. And like he, you know, heads off with, you know, Kingo. And then like the others, you know, Festus is like, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. And he like takes the communication orb out of Cersei, and he like breaks that down and uses that to make these bracelets, that he then gives to the rest of them to be able to use to, you know, help, you know, funnel their power into Druig to then, you know, put Tiamat to sleep. What ends up happening is they send Makari out to run around and like figure out where the emergence is going to happen. She finds it on this random like island somewhere. I don't remember exactly where, if they say the island is exactly, but they find it, and they go there, and like Icarus and Sprite are already there waiting. just ready to watch this emergent happen. And it's just like this island with a volcano, which is like a reference to Pompeii and Krakatoa and, you know, Atlantis type of thing. All, you know, insert so many other things there. You know, Mount St. Helens, so many different islands that have been destroyed by you know, volcanoes and such. And what ends up happening is the others show up. They fly their ship there. They kind of distract Icarus one way or the other. Several of them try to distract him while Druig gets ready to fight, or gets ready to, like, you know, absorb everybody else's power and everything like that. And like Athena tries to fight Icarus and everything. And like at one point she even has like the Excalibur, that, you know, the reference to Excalibur, and it's like someone says, I think it, I don't remember which one says about it, you know, Arthur did always have a crush on you, and like Athena's like, you know, she's got like the sword and everything like that, which I just find funny because it's like, yes, just give Angelina Jolie a sword, yes, just do that, go ahead, I'm okay with this, but I would not be good with the sword in combat. It's too heavy. It's too heavy for me to be able to swing, and I think these swords are supposed to be like one-handed, but I could be wrong. It's definitely a little too heavy for me to do. Well, if I had training, I probably could do it, but I don't. So, sword. We'll go back over there. Stay. Whatever. And what happens is, you know, this big whole fight ensues, and like, you know, it's Icarus versus, you know, Festus using his, you know, technology to like pin him to the beach, and, you know, Makari helping, like she like continuously like bangs like Icarus into like this rock wall, because like it's just like cumulative force and everything is, you know, force equals mass times acceleration type thing and everything like that. So, you know, her going extremely fast kind of increases her, you know, how her hitting power and everything like that. So she just like continues to like hits him, like bangs him into the ground and everything like that. And, you know, Athena is helping with that and everything. And then like they do end up having their power all flow through Druig, and he tries to make it work. But Icarus basically grabs him and then kind of makes it appear like Druig dies because he like lasers him into the earth. And I'm sitting there watching that, and I'm just like, I'm reminded of what Star and Stripe in the did in My Hero to Shigaraki in recent chapters. This is being recorded just after supposedly Star and Stripe got by Shigaraki. So moving on to not that. I apologize if you hear the dog. He probably sees a dog in the backyard. But what ends up happening is, you know, at that point in time, they think Druig's dead. And, like, you know, they're you know, putting everything they have into fighting Icarus, but at this point in time, Crow has also showed up. This kind of, you know, kind of super version of a deviant has, like, showed up. I think they've killed the rest of them. Well, one of them got turned into a tree. But the other one, you know, Crow shows up and he's like, I'm just going to, you know, gather up all of your powers anyway, kill you and take all of your powers anyway. And, like, him and Athena actually end up fighting in this cave. And her, like, Maud Weary ends up activating while she's in the cave. You know, kind of coming into play while she's in the cave. And he uses his, he, like, mimics, Gilgamesh's voice and like tries to trick her into surrendering so he can, you know, take her power, but she kind of fights back against it, and she, you know, makes her weapons form, and she like slices him into pieces, which I love. Falls apart. So she's now good. She goes out. I mean, like, I don't think like the Maud Weary has been cured or anything like that, but she's, you know, a little better. And like she goes out and starts trying to help, you know, fight Icarus more and everything like that. Makari and Festus are both trying to fight her. And Circe has like, I have to try to do something to try to stop Tiamat. So she's like running her way through like this, you know, volcano field up to trying to get to like where Tiamat is, and like we kind of start seeing him already emerge. Like we see like part of his hand starts coming out of the water, and like we see like part of his head comes out of the water and everything like that, and it's causing, you know, like destruction on like the other islands nearby and everything like that. And Sprite shows up and she like makes an illusion of like, you know, Ajax to try to stop Circe, and then she stabs Circe through the back. And Circe and Sprite have this moment, and Sprite is just like, I've always hated humans because you know, they get to grow and they get to experience things, and I don't. I'm stuck this way. I don't ever get to, you know, yeah, she can learn and everything, and she can mentally understand what's going on, but she can't physically go out and like experience, like, she falls in love with someone, they're gonna figure out real quickly that she doesn't age, so she can't go out and like have a relationship with someone. You know, or like if she did, it would be considered extremely creepy because she looks like a child. Um, and you know, like all this other stuff, and she's just like, I can't grow the way that they do. You know, the rest of you are all physically looking old enough that you can pass as adults or look like adults anyway, and I can't do that. And then Drogo just comes up behind her and like knocks her out with a rock, and then like Cersei, you know, runs off, and Cersei basically ends up, the Unimind happens, and like it sends all of their power into her, including Icarus's power and Sprite's power into her. I don't think we ever get an exact explanation as to whether or not Kingo's power got channeled into her, but I'm assuming that like he was an Eternal, since he's an Eternal as well, like on his, you know, plane on the way back to India, like his power activated at some point, like it floats out of the window or something like that, and it flowed to like where the rest of them were, you know, fighting, and went into Cersei, and she, you know, activates her power, and she starts basically turning Tiamat into this giant thing of marble. Is like the best example for it. It looked like snow or frost or ice going across it first, when I was like, no, it looks like she's just turning him into marble. And like, you know, Icarus flies down, and he tries, you know, he can't bring, you know, he tries to stop her, and he can't bring himself to do it, of course. And Cersei, you know, uses all of her power to, you know, send the power through and like, you know, turn, basically kill Tiamat. And, you know, she then, you know, heals herself, and I'm assuming probably sent power through to heal the others too. And Icarus, you know, guilt-ridden for everything that he's done, you know, he killed Ajax, he's, you know, the reason Gilgamesh is dead, you know, all this other stuff, and he, like, you know, flies off and flies into the sun and kills himself. Because that's a sane thing to do to make up for your actions. But he flies off to do that. And then Cersei goes back to the others, and she uses the remainder of the energy that she has inside of her to change Sprite into a full human, so that way Sprite can now age and can now finally, you know, grow instead of having her, you know, never-ending permanent child state. So she can grow. Cutting ahead to, like, I think it's supposed to be like 2 weeks later, we see like on the news, giant new island has appeared in this, you know, wherever. And, you know, they're all in South Dakota at, you know, the house. And, you know, Festus's, you know, husband and son are there, and like they're all talking and watching the news and everything like that, and getting an explanation. And like Thena and like Jack, who's the son, are like talking. And that's just funny. And like Festus is kind of this like overprotective parent. And like it, you know, he explains that, you know, Druig, Thena, and Makari are going to head off in the Domo to go and find other Celestials on other planets and try to explain to them what's been going on, what Arishem has been doing. They head off to go and do that. And, you know, so Jack and, you know, Festus's husband gets to see the ship go off. And then in London, we have, Sprite is going off to go live with, Kigo in, India, because reasons. She's heading off to go there and live with him because now she can age and go to school and everything like that. And, I'm assuming they kind of forgave Kingo for him not helping them fight, because he didn't at least try to stop them or try to fight against them. And he's still family. And so they head off, and then Cersei and Dane end up having this conversation, and like they, you know, are going to talk and everything like that. And what ends up happening is he's trying to tell her, oh, I found this whole, you know, I found something out about my family history and everything. And before he can tell her, Arishem appears in the frickin' sky around Earth because he can. And he, like, pulls Kingo and Festus and Cersei, like, they get pulled off of Earth, and he, like, takes them, and he's like, you stopped a Celestial from emerging and everything, and now because of your treason, I am going to spare humanity for the moment, but based on your memories, I will judge whether or not they are still worthy to keep on living. And he goes off, once he, takes them with him so he can look over their memories and everything. So that's fine. Like, everybody's just like, what the frick just happened? And, like, Dane's just, like, trying to figure out where Cersei went. I'm assuming the valet and Sprite are also like, where did Kigo go? And, like, Festus's husband and son are just like, where did my husband / father go? And then we got 2 credit scenes. We got one mid-credit scene, which is Athena, Makkari, and Druig on the ship, on the Domo, and they're like, it's been several weeks and we haven't heard anything from them. I wonder what's going on. And then they end up interacting with this space troll called Pip the Troll, who's drunk, and he introduces them to Eros, younger brother of Thanos. Insert all types of names. Here he is, and he's played by Harry Styles, which I'm like, okay, I can deal with this. This is okay with me. And the troll is voiced by Patton Oswalt. And then we cut, and he's like, okay, so I'm going to help you find your friends. Help you find them, and blah, 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 blah. So technically he is Gamora's uncle. So there's a theory that maybe that'll tie into, like, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or something like that. And then the other end credit scene is way at the end, and I stayed in the theater the whole time, is we see Dane is opening up this giant ornate chest that has this very long, ancient-looking, ebony sword in it. I don't have any, but she has a big, long, ancient-looking black sword in it. And he, is about to touch it, and then he has, like, a voice telling behind him, do you really want to do that? And it cuts to black. That sword is a reference to a character that's called Black Knight, which I am not extremely familiar with from Marvel, but the other voice was Mahershala Ali as Blade, who is going to be the new Blade in Marvel. I'm going to put this sword away. And then I'm just going to go through the credits, and then I think we're just about finished. All in all, I did like the movie. I think it was a very good movie. I mean, it's not my favorite Marvel movie by any means, and it's also, I've only seen it once, so there's stuff in it that I haven't picked up on yet. Sort of goes behind the computer desk. But, so there's stuff that I haven't quite picked up yet, or it's like, maybe on like a second or third watch, I'll be like, oh, okay, that makes more sense now, or I might notice something else. But all in all, I liked it. We have Gemma Chan as Cersei, as I mentioned. She was in Crazy Rich Asians. She was also Minerva in Captain Marvel. We have Richard Madden as Icarus. He is, of course, most famous for playing, Robb Stark in Game of Thrones. He also played the Prince in the live-action Cinderella with Lily James. Not really too sure what else he's been in. I know he's been in other stuff, but that's about it. We have Kumail Nanjiani, as I mentioned, as Kingo, and he's, studied, like, the, Die Hard films and, Errol Flynn and Zorro films and all this other stuff, and built up this, dynasty, in Bollywood. We have Leah McCuff as Sprite. I could not remember her name, but Leah McCuff as Sprite. About a 12-year-old child is what her appearance is. And then we have Brian Tyree Henry. That's right. I could not remember. It was like Tyree Henry, Brian Tyree Henry. I know I was missing one of his names. I apologize. He is Festus. And he is the first superhero to be depicted as gay in the MCU. Yay. And then we have Lauren Ridloff as Makkari. She is the first deaf superhero in the MCU, and she is the first one to have, like, this starring role in the film. And she liked, being able to, portray that role. We have Barry Keoghan, I apologize, is Druig. I apologize if I mispronounced his name. I'm not familiar with him. We have Don Lee as Gilgamesh. We have Harish Patel as Karam, who is the valet that works for Kingo. We have Kit Harington, of course, as Dan Whitman. Sorry, he is, of course, most known as Jon Snow as Game of Thrones. He is also in How to Train Your Dragons as Eret, son of Eret, in the How to Train Your Dragons 2 and How to Train Your Dragons 3, The Hidden World. And then we have Salma Hayek, of course, as Ajax. We have Angelina Jolie as Athena. We have the Deviant Crow. It's voiced by Bill Skarsgård, um, I who I believe is a son of the same guy that plays the doctor professor type guy in the first two Thor movies. That is like friends with Jane Foster. I apologize, I can't remember his name. We have David Kaye as the voice of Arsham. We have Haz Selman and Esai Daniel Cross to portray Ben and Jack, who are Phobos' husband and son. So I could not remember what their names were. I apologize for that. Various other villagers, of course, actors play the different villagers at times. We have Harry Styles, of course, as Eros / Star Fox in the mid-credit scene. Who's the brother of Thanos. And then we have Patton Oswalt voicing Pip. And then Mahershala Ali, voice cameo as in the post-credit scene as the Blade character. So, that talks to Dan Whitman. So, as I said, I enjoyed the movie. I like how they move like this yellow and blue or gold and blue theme throughout the movie for a lot of the characters. Because Kingo's jet is like blue and yellow, which is a reference because like the Babylon gates are blue and yellow, and those are like the colors that Ajax had on her outfit. And like I just enjoyed the movie. So I enjoy the movie. That's what I have to say. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you enjoyed Eternals. So I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. We have watched and guided. We have helped them progress and seen them accomplish wonders. Throughout the years, we have never interfered until now. You know, after I let you all go, I traveled the world living among them. I have seen them fight and lie and kill, but I have also seen them laugh and love. I've seen them create and dream. This planet and these people have changed me.